Good evening everyone, my name's Jess and I'm a tutor at Coding Kids. Welcome to episode 9 of our video series. In today's episode, we'll be continuing our video on variables. We'll be looking specifically at the difference between global and local variables and how to use the variable blocks in Scratch. Let's quickly recap what we know about variables. They are like containers. They can store information, but only one piece at a time, like a word or a number. They allow us to reference and manipulate the same information from different points in a program. In our last video, we showed you briefly how to create a variable, but we didn't talk about one small detail. Recall that when you're making a variable, you can choose to create for all sprites or for your active sprite only. The option you select determines the kind of variable you're creating. Variables can be local or global. A variable will be global if you select the For All Sprites option. A global variable is one that can be changed or accessed from any sprite in your project, regardless of the sprite it was created on. Conversely, a variable will be local if you select the For This Sprite Only option. A local variable is one that can only be accessed or changed from the sprite on which it has been created. Now that you know about global and local variables, let's move on to how to use variables in Scratch. We're going to make a program that generates two random numbers. ScratchCat will then report what the two randomly generated numbers are and tell us whether or not they are a match. Let's start small. First, we want to create two variables to store these two randomly generated numbers. Variables can be created in the data category, and these blocks will appear once you have made a variable. Next, we have to set the value of these variables to be random numbers. Every time the flag button is clicked, we can make this happen by inserting the Pick Random block from the Operators category. Next, we have to have ScratchCat tell us what these two numbers are. We can do that by using this code. The purple Say block can be found under the Looks category, but as it only has one empty space, we also need to use a Join block found in the Operators category. This code will simply print the two numbers side by side. However, we can make it a bit more readable by adding a few more blocks to the mix. Adding more Join blocks creates more room for us to add additional text, making what ScratchCat says easier to understand as it tells us which number is which. If we join these two together, we have our final piece of code. So, why did we decide to use this kind of code instead of simply doing this? Yes, these two pieces of code produce the same result, but in the second example, the random numbers that are generated aren't saved. So yes, they exist in that one instance, but what if you want to use these numbers at a different point in the program? Well, you can't, because you haven't saved the information in a variable. What happens if we want to extend the program? Let's say we don't just want the ScratchCat to tell us what the two random numbers are. What if we want to compare these two numbers and see if they have the same value? What if we want ScratchCat to report it when we find a match? Or what if we want to keep track of the number of times the two randomly generated numbers match? Well, we need variables to do these things. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for in this episode. But if you're interested, then do have a go at the challenges we mentioned earlier. Try to extend the program so that the two random numbers are compared. Or add a new variable, a score, to keep track of the number of times the two randomly generated numbers have the same value. We'll be showing you the solution in our next video on Tuesday, where we'll be extending our discussion on variables by talking about lists. See you on Tuesday.